This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
Welcome back to the show. We are honored to have Dr. Souha Ezzedeen joining us once again, and she's the founder, also head coach of Way of Life Dog Training, based out of Toronto, Canada, but she's helping people, their pets all over the world. And today we're going to talk about some common behavior issues, through the lens, I should say, of her method in a sense. So let's talk first and foremost a little bit about Dr. Souha, what she does, and for those new timers into the chat today, welcome. Glad to have you here, and we've had quite a few sessions, and I hope you've seen some. If you haven't, you're going to have to rewind, right? Are they posted on your website yet?
They are on our website, yes,
Great.
under
Well,
media.
beautiful. Well, thank you for being here. And for those that may not know a little bit about you and the work you do here through Way of Life, would you mind just sharing a little bit?
Not at all. My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me again, Jill. So, a few words about myself. My name is Souha Ezzedeen. I'm the founder of Way of Life Dog Training, developer of the Way of Life Method, and author of the book, The Way of Life Method: How to Heal Your Relationship with Your Dog and Raise a Sound, Strong, and Spirited Companion at Any Age. So, I always love to share my origin story and how is it that I ended here. About 20 years or so ago, more than 20 years, I adopted a dog who was not my first dog, but was a very challenging dog at a time when really all I wanted to be was a good pet parent. I never envisioned that I would become a dog trainer, much less an author or developer of a system to
Mm-hmm.
raise dogs and heal their behavior issues.
Wow.
So, this heart dog of mine, Maya, came with challenges that I was not quite prepared to deal with or qualified to deal with. And the help that we went looking for did not help us either. Unfortunately, we went on a 5-year journey looking for solutions in what the mainstream had to offer, and we did not go very far, unfortunately. Shortly after I moved to Canada, however, the universe smiled on us, and I came across several teachers that were unconventional and extraordinary in their perspective and in their approach. And I was mentored heavily for a decade. And not only was I able to help my girl Maya, but I came to an understanding of what it takes to have sound, happy, and connected dogs. And it wasn't really in the conventional methods that that knowledge became available to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to help other people, being a teacher at heart, and teaching runs in my family, by the way, all the way to my great grandmother. And so it's in the blood, it's in the genes. And I felt called to share what I had learned over that 10-year period.
Mm-hmm.
And so in 2019, I founded Way of Life Dog Training. And 4 years later, in 2023, my book came out. And so what we do, Jill, is that we do things quite differently from the mainstream in three ways. We differ from the mainstream in three ways. So I know today we're going to be talking about behavior issues, for example, reactivity and separation anxiety. And so for us at Way of Life Dog Training, we don't look at these issues as the problem. We look at them as a symptom of a
Yeah.
deeper issue. Of course, we help people get a handle on reactivity or separation anxiety or whatever it is that they're struggling with, but we help them go deeper to the root cause of why that behavior is manifesting in the first place. Another way that we differ from the mainstream is that we do not use the traditional method of behavior modification. We don't try to modify surface behavior. We help people modify their way of life, and with time, the behavior changes. And then a third way that we differ from the mainstream, again, is that we go beyond problem solving and help people raise incredibly sound and resilient and happy and connected dogs that are immune to the behavior issues that we see so frequently these days. So that's a little bit about us. And thank you again so much for having us.
Thank you for being here. And let's talk then a little bit about some reactivity and one of the most prevalent behavioral issues that you say severely affects the quality of life for owner
Yes,
and dog. Go ahead.
correct. So if you remember, Jill, last time when we spoke, we delved into the many reasons why people are struggling with behavior issues, and there are many, many different reasons. And we also covered some of the limitations with mainstream approaches. I mean, if the traditional training methods were helpful or, could really solve the issues at their root, then why are so many of us still struggling? That is a question that I ask. And I ask it kindly because people are doing what they can with what they know. So there's a range of behavior issues out there, Jill,
Yeah.
including reactivity, including aggression towards people, aggression towards dogs, aggression towards other animals, anxiety, separation anxiety, fear, resource guarding, escapism, destructiveness. There
Mhm.
is a range of issues that people are struggling with out there, but certainly reactivity is one of the most prevalent. And if we were to define reactivity briefly, I would define reactivity as explosive, over the top, triggered behavior. And again, different dogs are reactive to different triggers. Could be sounds, could be dogs, could be people, could be cyclists, could be runners, that cause dogs to basically go ballistic, usually on leash. That's why it's also called leash reactivity.
Okay.
Pulling, lunging, barking furiously at the trigger or target, or otherwise potentially shutting down. I have clients with sound reactivity that, they react to the sound and then they shut down and they freeze. And so you might see the range of stress responses, including fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Sometimes in acute reactive situations, the dogs could try to bite or attack the object or stimuli that triggers them. And if they are held back by their leash, what we could also encounter is a difficult or potentially dangerous situation where the dog redirects on their handler. So that is reactivity in a nutshell. And it's undermining of the quality of life of the owners and evidently undermining of the quality of life of the dogs themselves. And a major reason why dogs are rehomed, surrendered to shelters, and in really worst case situations, behaviorally euthanized.
Ugh.
So we have to ask, well, what is behind
Yeah.
reactive behavior? Obviously, what is the reason? It's normal to want to know what is the cause of this, what is driving this behavior. And again, in the mainstream thinking, there's different theories out there about why dogs are reactive, including is the dog maybe in pain or medically you know, they're they're challenged in some way, they're uncomfortable, they're in pain. Another idea is that the dogs are afraid, so fear is driving the reactivity.
Mm-hmm.
Another idea is that, well, they don't like other dogs or they don't like cyclists, that is just in their personality to be reactive. And
Yeah.
another one that I hear a lot is the dog is trying to protect
Yeah.
the people that they're with, that they're being protective. And none of these reasons are reasons that we buy, actually. We do not, agree with any of these reasons. So let me go through these reasons again
Sure.
very quickly and say why is it that we don't necessarily agree with them. Is that on the one hand, if a dog is in pain, sure, that can alter the dog's behavior. But alone, it's not a reason for a dog to be reactive, because if the dog were in pain, but also in a trusting
Yeah.
relationship, they would trust the people that they're with and not feel that they have to respond so emphatically to stimuli that they see. In terms of personality, again, that's something that we tell our clients all the time is that let's get started with the way of life method. Let's redesign the way of life. And then let's see if the dogs are still reacting. And so it's not in their personality. It is a result of their way of
Yeah.
life. Change the way of
Yeah.
life, the dogs change.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of the dogs being protective, a protective dog is quietly protective.
Mm-hmm.
A dog that is truly protective thinks and then reacts appropriately. But there's something about the reactive behavior that many people struggle with that clearly
Yeah.
shows that there's a lack of thought in the dogs. And that's what we tell our clients all the time is that we help them restore thought in their dogs. And a thinking dog thinks, analyzes before they react. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
these are some of the reasons that are put out there for why a dog is reactive. And we have our own theories as to why. We have our own thinking regarding reactivity, and I can share those very quickly.
Yeah. Sure.
So, one of the reasons why we feel that dogs are reactive when they're out and about with their people is because of an inordinate amount of freedom that is given at home.
Yeah.
So, we'll hear people say all the time that he's perfect at home or she's
Mm-hmm.
perfect at home. She's on the couch, she's on the bed,
Yeah.
she's with us all the time, she's so good, she's so good. But once we're outside, we have a problem.
Hmm.
And so to us, this is a poor management of space and boundaries.
Yep.
If space and boundaries are managed well inside, at home, indoors, so in other words,
Mm-hmm.
if the dog feels that there are rules, that there's limits, that there are
Yep.
boundaries that are regulated indoors, the
Mm-hmm.
dog will feel regulated when they're out and about.
Yep.
So, in other words, if I'm running a tight ship at home and it's not chaotic and a free for all with the dogs, once we're out and about on our walks, visiting, doing whatever it is that we do together outside of our home, the dog will also feel regulated and know that we are the ones in charge because we're in charge at home,
Yep.
right? So that's one reason that dogs are
True.
reactive is a poor management of space and boundaries at home, on home turf. Another one is that when we bring a new dog home, we often integrate that dog very quickly in our home as opposed to gradually. And that is coming from a place of love and care. But it's important to understand how the dog experiences this
Yeah.
rapid integration into our home. It is often experienced as pressure, pressure to belong, pressure to perform, pressure to behave,
Oh,
pressure
yeah.
to be polite, pressure to be good with all the family members and their friends and their guests. And so, once outside of the home, or even sometimes inside the home, the dog's response to that pressure is to be reactive.
Yeah.
Reason number three is an overemphasis on training. So, training has its place, and our listeners might have heard this before in our previous conversations that training teaches skills, but
Mm-hmm.
way of life instills attitude. And so, if I'm overemphasizing training, constantly telling the dogs to do things, commands,
Mm-hmm.
um, what ends up happening is that we inadvertently undermine their natural capacity to think,
Mm-hmm.
their natural capacity to analyze a situation. And ultimately, reactivity or the lack thereof is not just a skill or a lack of a skill, it's a lack of an attitude of calmness, an attitude of confidence, an attitude of trust.
Yeah.
And so the only way to build those into our dogs is not through traditional cue, reinforce, reward training, but rather through the decisions that we make and how a dog is managed and handled at home and
Mm-hmm.
outside the home. Okay, very good. Another reason, and I have a handout, by the way, for
Oh,
anyone who wants a handout about those causes of reactivity that we don't talk about enough. I invite our listeners to go to my website, Way of Life Dog Training, under resources, there's a space called freebies where people can download a free PDF about these causes of reactivity and how to deal with them. So I thought I'd mention that quickly. Reason number four is that sometimes people have dogs that are very smart and
Mm-hmm.
very driven. And as you might have heard it said, they need a job.
Yes.
They need a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
They need to have these drives and tendencies channeled correctly. And so we could have a mismatch between the dog's tendencies and genetics and drives and motivation to can perform and achieve and what is given them in their day-to-day life.
Yeah.
And often what I see in incredibly intelligent, driven dogs is high level of sensitivity. And so that sensitivity, if poorly managed, can end up creating that reactivity that so many people struggle with.
Wow.
Reason number five, a lack of proportionality essentially between sound behavior and the degree of attention, affection, and inclusion that a dog is given.
Yep.
And that can be a hard thing for people to accept, is that they need to dial down their affection and attention a little bit as a way to motivate this dog to improve on their behavior. Because what ends up happening is that when we're extremely affectionate and doling out the love and attention and inclusion on our dogs, that can be seen by the dog as an approval of their behavior,
Okay.
as an approval of their attitude. So essentially, Jill, the causes of reactivity have to do with way of life. And that's where we
Mm-hmm.
come in, is that when we help our clients redesign their way of life in a way that makes sense to their dogs, in a way that helps dogs become sound, strong, and spirited, as we like to say, it is a matter of time before the reactivity starts to fizzle out. Now, way of life also means a manner of handling. So we also teach our clients on how to handle their dogs in a moment of a reactive outburst or a moment where the dog is triggered. But we also
Yes.
do work on the back end. We do work at home. We do work with how this dog is being managed outside of when it's being walked, right? And so a combination of handling plus redesigning and rethinking our way of life helps dogs recover from reactivity.
Mm. Thank you. Well, and by the way, the work you are doing, if you are just tuning in, to remind you at Way of Life, you're working with so many pet owners and pets alone, no matter where you live in the world, virtually as well.
Mhm.
Because, right, I know you're in Canada,
Correct.
but these are common behavioral problems, and you really, it's amazing to hear your take on them because I've heard people, friends complain about their dogs and what's wrong and what's going on and you never really I've never heard these types of solutions. I mean, that's what makes
Hmm.
you very unique. But there's so many
Thank
different
you.
behavioral issues that dogs have, and we're going to talk a little bit more about them as well. But
Yes,
yeah, it's fascinating to know there's other solutions, and not to always jump the gun when something is wrong or not working. You got to find something that works.
correct. And part of the solution to finding something that really works is understanding why those issues are happening
Yep,
in the first
and that
place.
root cause
And
exactly.
that root cause, exactly, which we believe and know without a doubt that it has to do with how the dog lives, how they're managed, how they're handled above and beyond simply how they're trained. You know, Jill, they're a family member now. You know, they live with us in our home. They're a bona fide family member. And for many people, they're like a surrogate child in many
Yeah,
ways. And so training has its limits. Training is helpful, like I said before, in teaching skills, but our way of life is what helps produce a dog that is sound, i.e., non reactive.
yeah,
A dog that is strong, meaning they don't have separation anxiety if you've got to be gone and you're busy,
yeah,
you know? So, what we work towards is a way of life that instills sound, strong spirited, and sound, strong spirited dogs do not have the issues that so many dogs are struggling with. So, with your permission, we can talk a little bit next about separation anxiety, which is another very
yep,
prevalent issue. A-
absolutely. Let's continue.
And we've heard it talked more about in the wake of the pandemic, with so many of us being at home with our pets. And then now we had to go back to the office. and so many dogs struggled with separation anxiety. So let me say something that may not be very popular with this thinking, is that even if you work from home constantly, and you hardly leave to go to the office, that is not a reason for dogs to develop separation anxiety.
Yeah.
I'm an academic in addition to being a dog trainer, and academics frequently work from home and, have agency over their schedule and go into the office on occasion to teach or for meetings and such. So I've worked from home for years before it was even as prevalent as it is today. And I've never had dogs with separation anxiety. So being at home in lockdowns is not a reason why dogs should develop separation anxiety. There are other things that we're doing in the way of life that cause separation anxiety. And I can give you a quick tidbit, a quick story about this dog that I'm fostering right now. He's been with me 6 weeks. He's been bounced around from a home to another. I'm essentially his fourth
Uh,
situation, and he's under 3 years old.
hmm.
And he's trying to latch onto me. He's a little bit obsessed with where I am and what I do. And when I go let him out of his crate, he's over the top excited.
Yeah.
And I don't mean in a healthy way. And this unhealthy attachment is happening in spite of me putting a healthy distance between the two of us. A healthy distance to help him recover, number one, and a healthy distance because he will be up for adoption. He's not staying here.
Hmm.
And so imagine what would happen to that
Ah,
attachment if I not only reciprocated it, but gave a lot of attention and love and had the dog with the other dogs and on my couch and in my bed. And imagine what would happen to this unhealthy attachment. It would become obsessive. It would create that separation anxiety that so many
yeah.
dogs struggle with. See what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Yeah.
So, and at the same time, you will hear trainers say that, and that concerns me a great deal, where you will hear trainers say that it has nothing to do with relationship, that
Hmm.
separation anxiety has nothing to do with bond, has nothing to do with attachment, has nothing to do with how much affection you give your dog, has nothing to do with how much inclusion you give your dog. That is such an inaccurate and dangerous message.
Yeah.
Truly is, because it assumes that the dog is not a relational creature.
Yeah.
It assumes that the dog doesn't respond to the quality of their attachment, healthy
Yeah.
or unhealthy, you know? And we think the entire opposite of that. And we help people create healthy relationships with their dogs that make the dogs healthy enough to be on their own. And that is something that they want to be able to do. Studies on free roaming dogs are so interesting and so enlightening because, true, some dogs live in bands or what would be the equivalent of a pack for a street dog. It's not really a pack because dogs aren't wolves, but many street dogs live on their own. They have
Mm-hmm.
some friendships, but they also live on their own. So, what does that tell us about a dog being incapable of being alone? It goes counter to what they're naturally capable of.
Yeah.
And so, what we help people do is create a way of life that is healthy and restores the dog to their dogness. And part of being a dog is being social, yes, but also being capable of being on their own.
True. And I feel like we're also talking about children here. It can go hand in
Yes.
hand. I have an 8 and 10 year old, so I'm like, oh yeah, I'm getting this. Uh-huh. The attachment, the
Glad it's
separation.
helpful.
It is.
And our clients who are our parents, we joke all the time about how
Yeah.
insightful the method is, not only for dogs, but for children as well. So, Jill, with the time that we have left,
We're
I
good.
want to touch on very quickly three other issues that are very common. So,
Sure.
reactivity, separation anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
aggression are some of the key issues that people bring to our attention, but also sound sensitivity, resource guarding, and conflicts between the dogs.
Okay.
So, with regards to sound sensitivity, There's the idea out there that it has to do with the sound, that it's the sound of fireworks, it's the sound of the microwave.
Mm-hmm.
Case in point, our client from a few years ago, Molly, a cockapoo that lived in a home with two young kids, and the home appliances were making these sounds continuously throughout the day. The microwave and the bottle machine and so on. And here Molly was reacting and reacting and reacting to all of these sounds. They worked with a traditional trainer who tried to desensitize Molly to the sound,
Yeah.
which only made matters worse because
Mm.
it made the sound that much more relevant.
Yeah.
So that's the paradoxical effect of trying to desensitize and condition a dog to a sound. But when we started to work together, what we realized was that Molly was a little stressed in
Mm-hmm.
her life with the young kids, very chaotic life with young kids. And it was during the pandemic, so both parents were at home all the time. But once we introduced our clients to the way of life, Molly was no longer as stressed, meaning she no longer reacted to the
Yeah.
sounds. So the sounds were only a trigger, but they were not the cause of her reaction. So imagine you're irritated, you're stressed, you're not feeling good. Benign things could irritate you,
Yeah.
send you over the edge. And so what we did with Molly is relieve her of her stress, and then with time, the noises and the sounds of the household stopped bothering her.
Wow.
Really interesting and really great for anyone here who's struggling with sound sensitivity. I really think of it as being a manifestation of stress. When the dog is in a stress, they don't react quite the same way. With resource guarding, very quickly, one thing that we
Yeah.
do and that I would ask anybody to stop doing is giving dogs things and then going to take them away, snatching them out of their mouth,
Mm.
asking them to relinquish things that they find valuable, like their food, like their
Yeah.
toys, like their chew bones.
Mm.
When I give something to a dog, I want them to just have it and enjoy it. And what I say all the time is that if we had never messed with dogs, whenever they're playing with something or eating their food or chewing on their bones, would they ever have developed resource guarding?
No.
Unlikely. And
Mm-hmm.
very quickly, when it comes to dog on dog conflicts, last
Yeah.
area that we can touch on very quickly is again a manifestation of stress. So if
Yeah.
the dog is stressed because their way of life is not aligned with how we would like it to be,
Mm-hmm.
how do they deal with that stress? It is often redirected on the other dogs.
Oh.
And so when the way of life is reorganized, redesigned, and there's no longer stress, there's no longer a need to take out the stress on the other dog because the dogs know that it is safer to unleash their stress on the other dog than it would be on the person. They
Yeah.
love us so much. They'd rather beat up on their canine, housemate or packmate than on the people in the house. So we go to the root cause, regardless of the issue that we're dealing with, Jill. We go to the root cause, and the root cause is always, almost always, aspects of the way of life that we can change.
Beautiful. Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So how can we reach out to you? Please share.
Thank you so much, Jill. Anything about our business, our resources, our services can be found on our website, wayoflifedogtraining.com. We work with people in person and virtually. We work in private as well as in group classes. We have a book, The Way of Life Method. There are also short PDFs
Yeah.
available under freebies, under resources. And we're especially very proud of the Way of Life Method Academy that we launched in March, which is an online space for people anywhere around the world to seek coaching, support, and guidance in applying the method to their unique dog, family, and situation.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I'm glad we reconnected and
Me too.
reconnected for real. Thanks so much. Is this meeting? This is your last show?
This is it. I
It
want to
is.
thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, getting to know you, and all the amazing work you do to help so many pets and families out there. So thank you. Continue the good work, and I'll say till we meet again. I won't say goodbye.
Thank you, Jill. Till we
All
meet
right.
again.
Sounds good. Have a fantastic day, and to all of our listeners and viewers, the same as well.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.